Hold on to your hats, horror fans. The eldritch portal has opened up and we're being beckoned forth by a horrifying host of anomalous tendrils calling us into the eternal abyssal void of Lovecraftian fiction once again. So let's go! Come on guys, you know that it's our favourite thing to do, and you also may be aware that we've scoured the Cthulhu Mythos for quite some time, picking out the most terrifying creations of its cosmic horror. But luckily for us, some fresh real estate has just opened up, so forget about monsters for a moment and let's take a look at the terrifying neighbourhoods that populate the works of Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Hello horror fans, what's going on? And once again, welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. As per usual, I'll be your horror host Jack Finch, as today we curiously take a look at the top 5 scariest places in Lovecraftian fiction. Roll the clip.
This is Carcosa. You know what they did to me?
I get chills every time, and for the curious amongst you, that scene was from season 1 of True Detective, starring Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, perhaps one of the finest pieces of television ever made. And whilst that may be giving away a little bit about the events of the phenomenal season in question, don't worry, because Carcosa is only the destination, and it's the journey that matters. And yeah, if Carcosa sounds a little familiar, then that's because it is, and time is a flat circle. Anyway, let's lay on some cosmic horror. Kicking off at number 5. Innsmouth. And yes, of course, our first destination on this whistle-stop tour of Lovecraftian fiction has to be the one place that you surely wouldn't want to spend your summer holiday in, well, unless you were looking for that particular Innsmouth look. Of course, the small town of Innsmouth, Massachusetts. Now, before we see what all the fuss is about, it's probably best that we briefly talk about a little place called Lovecraft Country, because it's going to pop up a few times here and there. As some of you may know, within his fictional works, H.P. Lovecraft created a small area of New England that featured recurrently in his many tales of cosmic horror, oftentimes bleak East Coast Atlantic towns and villages, sleepy suburbs that harboured some deep, dark and downright dank secrets. One of those places is Innsmouth, a coastal town founded way back in 1643, famed for its otherwise fishy disposition. You see, as the primary backdrop of Lovecraft's 1931 novella The Shadow over Innsmouth, the story's narrator Robert Olmsted quickly discovered that the strange denizens of the town were in fact members of the cult of Dagon, and had kept an ancient pact with the horrifying keepers of Dagon, the Deep Ones, fish-like horrifying monstrosities. As part of their pact with the Deep Ones, the residents of Innsmouth were forced to interbreed with them, creating a long line of rather fishy-looking individuals. And not only that, as is also revealed later in the novella, those of Deep One heritage eventually fully transform into their fishy ancestors and flee to a place called Devil's Reef, just off the coast of Innsmouth, where the ancient city of Yanath-Lele resides. Yeah, it's safe to say that if your date tells you they're actually from Innsmouth, it's probably best to not order the sea bass and just walk away. Swinging in at number 4, Arkham. And again, a place that I'm sure many of you expected to appear on this list, and a name that many of you will be familiar with, even if you're not as up to date with the many places and names of Lovecraftian fiction. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Arkham Asylum. What a great game. Anyway, as we said previously, Lovecraft Country is perhaps the most densely populated and also widely unfortunate places in the Lovecraft universe. With Innsmouth, Dunwich, Kingsport and Providence, it's safe to say that all of them merely linger in the shadow of the misty town known as Arkham, Massachusetts. As Lovecraft described in The Thing on the Doorstep, the ancient, mouldering and subtly fearsome town in which we live, witch-cursed, legend-haunted Arkham, whose huddled, sagging gambrel roofs and crumbling Georgian balustrades brood out the centuries beside the darkly muttering Miskatonic. I mean, Lovecraft often gets a bit of stick for his lack of technical prose, but what an awesome sentence that is. The fact is, Lovecraft, as well as August Derleth and many other Cthulhu Mythos writers, had such a high reverence for Arkham. It was a place crafted with a love for cosmic horror, and also a place that featured more often than any others in their works. Herbert West Reanimator, The Colour Out of Space, The Whisperer in Darkness, The Dreams in the Witch House, The Shadow Out of Time, and many others, all either feature Arkham or make a note of its shadowy reputation. And of course, as you'll all be waiting with bated breath for me to mention, it is home to the notorious Miskatonic University, the home of the largest collection of arcane literature and tomes of the occult known to mankind. It says something that the many professors that form Lovecraft's protagonists were primarily the faculty of Miskatonic University. Getting a job there, or even living in Arkham for that matter, was quite the occupational hazard. Next up at number 3, the Plateau of Leng. And now we're getting into perhaps the more genuinely terrifying landscapes of Lovecraftian fiction, where space and time cease to function in all manners that we understand. Now, if we're being honest, there are countless places alluded to in the Cthulhu Mythos, perhaps a sentence here and there in reference to its horrifying mysteries, but none of them are as fleshed out as the Plateau of Leng is, which is an impressive feat given the fact that it's actually never been fully described. Yeah, I know, but that's just cosmic horror for you, I guess. As it first appeared in 1922's The Hound, Leng is a cold and arid plateau, whose location seemingly varies entirely depending on who is observing it. In The Hound, the Necronomicon details that its location actually resides in Central Asia, and it is inhabited by a human corpse-eating cult. Seemingly, the notorious scholar Abdul al-Zared describes it as a place where different realities converge, which could perhaps explain why its precise location can never be pinned down. Again, in 1926, The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, the Plateau of Leng is said to be located in the north of the Dreamlands, and strangely enough, it is residence of the High Priest not to be described, a mysterious figure who dwells alone in a strange prehistoric monastery to the Great Old Ones, accompanied by a race of vile, goatish humanoids. Yeah, and if it doesn't sound like a nice place, that's because it really isn't. In fact, it is also believed that in the legendary novella At the Mountains of Madness, the expedition featured in that particular tale who discovers an ancient abandoned city of impossible dimension created by the Elder Things is in fact a manifestation of the Plateau of Leng, a crossover of the ancient places of the Cthulhu Mythos emerging from the fabric of twisted time and space. Yeah, essentially, if you end up on the Plateau of Leng, you're probably in for a bit of a terrifying ruckus, I guess. Coming in at number 2, R'lyeh. Come on guys, you only knew it was a matter of time, because in his house at R'lyeh, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming. And if we're talking about abandoned cities of impossible dimension and terrifying architecture, then we need only take a quick glance at the sunken city to realise just exactly what Lovecraft's intention was. Because it's crazy that we can even elaborate on this, but the reality is, old Howard Phillips made architecture scary. He really did, and we can only admire what an impressive feat that really is. First appearing in Lovecraft's 1928 short story The Call of Cthulhu, R'lyeh is a sunken city located deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a treacherous place characterized by its bizarre architecture of non-Euclidean geometry, and of course the place where the Great Old One, the High Priest himself, Cthulhu, waits dreaming. As Lovecraft first describes, the nightmare corpse city of R'lyeh was built in measureless eons behind history by the vast, loathsome shapes that seep down from the dark stars. There lay great Cthulhu and his hordes, hidden in green slimy vaults until the end. Again, the man knew just exactly how to turn pillars of stone into looming behemoths of a place that our frail human minds could never fully comprehend. Now, if you haven't read The Call of Cthulhu, then please dive into it because it's a fantastic read, but as is described in that story, Lovecraft details R'lyeh as a city of panorama, vast angles of stone surfaces, too great to belong to anything right and proper for this earth. He calls it abnormal, impious, and filled to the brim of horrible images. Although no one has ever been there, Lovecraft makes a point that navigating the city on foot is nearly impossible. Surfaces that appear flat may be tilted, angles of masonry that appear convex at first glance will shift and change to appear concave. Nothing is as it seems, and R'lyeh is a place that was never intended to be witnessed by human beings. Yeah, take note, if you're trying to write a terrifying location, this is a whole different level. And finally, coming in at number 1 spot, Carcosa. Of course, because although a place not primarily created by Lovecraft himself, when it comes to cosmic horror, there are fewer places in the terrifying cosmos that strike such unimaginable fear in the hearts of us weary humans as that of Carcosa. And again, much like with the Plateau of Leng, this place has never been truly comprehended in the many texts of the Cthulhu Mythos. And let's not beat about the bush, that's the reason why it's truly terrifying, right? Because if there was some kind of revelation that Carcosa was in fact the home of a race of cute, fluffy, bear-like Ewoks, we wouldn't be scared in the slightest. You see, that could be true, that could be the case, but the fact that we don't know and the fact that we will never know is why our curiosity is piqued, and is why we are fearful of it. It is the literal definition of cosmic horror, the fear of the unknown. First mentioned in the 1886 short story by Ambrose Bierce, an inhabitant of Carcosa, the ancient and mysterious city is barely described and is only ever viewed in hindsight following its alleged destruction by the narrator who once lived there. The city would later be picked up and used more extensively in the Robert W. Chambers book The King in Yellow, although the mysterious allusion to its location or even its origin was still its primary function. Chambers gave us just enough information about Carcosa to keep our intrigue piqued, and in fact that has been the same fuel that has kept the mystery of Carcosa in our cultural memory for so long. No other place in literature has been passed from pillar to post, from author to author, so often as Carcosa. In The King in Yellow, the city of Carcosa is a mysterious, ancient and impossibly cursed place. One description of its location is said to be located on the shores of the Lake of Harley, deep within the Hyades star cluster. Where's that? Beats me, but I'm pretty confident that we should all avoid it. As the Cthulhu Mythos has later elaborated upon, it is believed that Carcosa is the residence of the Great Old One, Hastur, who often merges the reality of Earth with his home dimension of Carcosa, seemingly plucking humans out of thin air like apples on a tree to be his tortured playthings. Yeah. Carcosa. It literally goes without saying, but it's a pretty terrifying place. Well, there we have it, horror fans, our list for the top 5 scariest places in Lovecraftian fiction. What do you guys think? Do you agree, disagree, have any more to add? Then let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below, as well as any choice picks of your own. Before we depart from today's video though, let's first take a quick look at some of your more creative comments from over the past few days. Gareth Allen says, want to hear something really weird? Before Lost Highway, I could not stand David Lynch. Then I watched Twin Peaks, which became my favourite series of all time, although season 1 of True Detective bounced it down to number 2. Brilliant again, Jack. Cheers. And cheers to you, Gareth Allen. Thank you very much for those kind words. You know what? I agree with a lot of stuff you said in that comment, and I agree, Twin Peaks is the linchpin to David Lynch's works. See what I did there? But yeah, listen to Gareth, guys. If you're struggling with some of Lynch's stuff, which, you know, is pretty easy to do, watch Twin Peaks and I think all will be revealed. Well, on that note, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for in today's video. Just stick around all the way until the end. If you were a fan of this video, or just top 5 scary videos in general, then please be a dear and hit that thumbs up button, as well as that subscribe bell, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. As per usual, I've been your horror host, Jack Finch. You've been watching top 5 scary videos, and until next time, you take it easy.